All right, so kickstarting with our very first segment, we have architect Aishwarya Tipnis, principal architect at ATA Delhi, and this is a solo talk. The topic is Old is Gold: Perspective on Conservation in Built Environment. Ma'am, what a pleasure to have you with us, and we eagerly await. What a start to the day. Stage is all yours. Thank you so much.
Globalization has killed our cities. All cities look alike. And you could be anywhere in India and you wouldn't know where you are. And I think that's what really bothers me. I think I became an architect because I love my city. I love my city because my city taught me everything I know about architecture. My entire vocabulary comes from the space I grew up in. So if someone would say shopping center to me, in my mind would be the lofty, colonnaded arcades of Connaught Place, where you had very fancy show windows on one side with their colonial signboards and fancy teapots inside them. And on the other side, you had street vendors sitting on the floor of the colonnade selling very shiny things that as a child I took a lot of fascination to. I took history in a city for granted. And there were so many layers of history in my city. So if we went to Purani Delhi and took a rickshaw ride and the kind of Havelis that we saw or the different food that we ate there, the intangible architecture of Old Delhi was very different. The city was layered, and so our understanding of architecture was also layered. And so when I went to study architecture, I knew so much already, just because as a child, sitting at the back of a car, looking out through the window, I saw my city, I observed my city, and I learned from the city.
Welcome to the Metasia exhibition. Please come to the...
The French embassy with Aishwarya, the architect, started on a project in Chandanagar. Chandanagar is 15 minutes from Calcutta. It was a French outpost. And there we started a very innovative project, a PPP, Public-Private Partnership.
As part of the project, we wanted to do a pilot project, and there were multiple discussions on what building should we choose. And I chose the building which was, I think, the most challenging project of my lifetime, even up till now. And this was the registry building. It was a very strategically located building on the waterfront in complete dereliction. There were trees growing out of the building, the roofs had caved in, and the building had a demolition order since 1993. So I said that if we want to make a case for restoration, if we want to make a case for saving buildings, then we had to choose this one. Everyone thought I was mad. They said that this building, anything but this building. And I said, if anything, then this building. And so with my co-founder Hina, who is also a fellow architect, traveled the world and interested in cities and innovation, we decided that it was time to take the stories of Jugaad and innovation that exist in our cities to our young people, and to show them that we're already so sustainable, but we don't recognize it as such. And that's where Jugaadopolis was born.
The best way to have more people believe in your school of thought is that when they know about what you're doing. And to get that, we needed to start capacity building. We needed to get our message across to people. And the best way to do this was to create tools of capacity building, because there was no way that we could reach out to people. It was really nice how the students have worked in their studios, in their classrooms to theoretically derive solutions for the project, and then of course they go on the site and do hands-on work. They work with real materials, we work with lime, wood, etc. to get hands-on experience.
When we hit the pandemic and we were all stuck inside our homes, Hina and I thought that we should do something about this opportunity. This was also the time that we realized that this was the first time that we couldn't go to site, and so we needed something in the virtual medium that didn't exist till then. So we designed these internship programs from students across India to create these user-friendly manuals on restoration, and that's how the Restoration Toolbox was born.
And restoration is not only rebuilding the building, it's also to use it, it's also to recycle it. So that's a great toolbox. You know, I would love to have a toolbox like that for everything, for any project.
We needed hand-holding, we needed capacity building, we needed moral support, and thus we launched something on the site which we are calling the Restoration Clinic, where we started offering pro bono expert advice to owners and occupiers who had old buildings who wanted to restore them on their own.
I always thought that conservation and restoration is the fief of Archaeological Survey of India and of the Indian National Trust for Art and Cultural Heritage, in fact. So we were clueless, as this is not our area of expertise. One of the key resources that Aishwarya made available to us was a restoration toolbox.
But at the same time, we need to support the lone warriors with policy. We need to have institutional frameworks that back those policies.
Unfortunately, we are losing out on repair, and I have, in the last 20 years that I've worked in this field, I'm realizing that many of the skill sets that we had for repairs is vanishing. We don't have trades that we had before, that we so proudly went down the street, especially in India, and got things repaired. We're not having that. To make repairs not only as a, as an event or a thought, but it should come as a policy direction, and it should be my right to get things repaired. When I talk about right, at the moment I don't get it as a right. I exercise an option of repair.
How the government looks at restoration, and in a way it was sad, because they don't see heritage work. They see heritage as something that you can put in a showcase, either to attract tourists or to do something more commercial with it. But what I would really like to see is a space in which every homeowner is conscious that a stitch in time will save 9, that restoration will work for them. Repair should be the first option, not just an afterthought.
Can you play the slides? So I have only 10 minutes, and I thought what better way than to compress our message as most as possible. So I know that most people think that conservation is about forts and palaces and really monumental edifices. But what I'm interested in is looking at our everyday environment and restoring everyday heritage that belongs to all of us. Homes that we live in, buildings that we study in, the railway station that we pass every day. And to sum up, I think to save our cities, we need to save our everyday heritage. And saving a city doesn't mean taking it back in time or trying to look at it through a lens of nostalgia, that how beautiful it was in the past. The point is that today, as a heritage architect, I'm not just a designer, and I think the role requires a shift. Today, a heritage architect has to be more of a facilitator, because we have to work with diverse communities, decision makers, partners and collaborators, and heritage lovers and enthusiasts. Heritage doesn't belong to one person, it belongs to everybody. And the only way that heritage can go into the future is everybody is empowered to do something about it. And which include all kinds of stakeholders, whether they are engineers that work with the PWD or your simple contractor down the road. Heritage is only sustainable if it makes sense to each and every person that touches it. And therefore, students are really, really important, because in colleges, when we don't even talk about old buildings, we don't even talk about the merit of intervening with them. It's not just about putting them in a showcase, but it's about how can they make sense to us today in the present day. And therefore, we have created a lot of free tools and resources so that every single person who's interested in heritage and has access to the knowledge that is required to do something about it. And so, if I sum up what's coming next, it's about engaging with all kinds of people, particularly the young generation, because if they don't see a future in heritage, nobody will. As well as all kinds of stakeholders who may be owners, who may be occupiers, who may be people who are responsible for these old buildings. And so I'd like to end today by saying heritage is a collective responsibility. Every designer, every owner, every architect, every person who lives in the city is responsible for preserving and taking this heritage into the future. And that's where I'll say thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I will try to not fall today. कोशिश मेरी तरफ से रहेगी. So you'll have to give me like 10 seconds to climb. 10 extra seconds, of course. Ma'am, what a line, right? Everyday heritage. What a beautiful line that is, right? Imagine what a shift of perspective it is. Looking at an old building and giving it the same value as you would to a palace. So that is a complete perspective change.
Good morning, all of you. Welcome to
Now I know how you felt. Now I understand how you felt.
Great conference hall. The conference is about to start in some minutes with some exciting lineup of speakers.
Good morning, everybody. Okay, this is a wake-up call, by the way, or this public announcement is if in case you're sleeping, हमने थोड़ा जुगाड़ आपने बोला हमने भी जुगाड़ा है कुछ. Okay, ma'am, like I said, requesting you to please stay with us a little longer. If I could ask you one question, why would one place the same value to an old building as one would for, let's say, a killa or a fort? Because usually what happens, restoration is something that you associate with heritage of a larger value. So what made you want to conserve something which is not in the same magnitude as that?
See, I think old buildings make up our cities and they give our cities a unique identity. So if I'm walking in Purani Delhi, it's different than walking in let's say the old city of Jaipur or even walking somewhere in Bombay, right? So it's these everyday buildings, when they put together, they make a city what it is. It's about its identity.
Wow.
So if we don't do something to preserve this identity and replace these buildings with modern buildings that could be anywhere in the world, we are losing our identity much faster than if we were to preserve a monument. So I think the city belongs to all of us. All of the people who live in it, work in it, own buildings in it, rent buildings in it. And so if one building going impacts everybody. And so therefore our initiative, and also there's a lot of research now that says the greenest building is the one that already exists. So even from the climate change perspective, restoring, adapting, reusing, retrofitting old buildings is the way forward for achieving sustainability. Therefore, we think heritage conservation is the way forward for architecture. It's not just a cherry on the cake, but it is what is required going into the future.
My God, Architect Aishwarya, I mean, you could be, is there a restoration ministry? You should definitely, आपको contest करना चाहिए वहाँ से. We can feel the passion.
I'm happy to be the people's leader, championing the movement, because I think the power that people have and the power that local citizens have is something we haven't realized so far. But people can make a big impact.
For sure. And we see your co-founder, Miss Hena, right behind. मैंने आपको देखा and then I'm like, oh, इनको मैंने कहीं देखा है. I saw you on screen. I was like, I've seen her somewhere. Oh, she's sitting right behind me. Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, can you have a big round of applause for these two wonderful women? Miss Hena, requesting you to please stand up as well. These are the two women that you're applauding for. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.